Beginning of that kind of goes with the fog today. That, of course, the Vancouver band Actors. And that means it's time for Sandboxing. That is the name of our monthly AI and emerging tech column. And today, our columnist Kris Krüg is going to walk us through some of the latest advances in assistive technology, or AT, part of our coverage of International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Turns out there's some groundbreaking work happening right here in Vancouver. And Kris joins us in studio this morning. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Stephen.
Thanks for being here, as always. It's great to see you. First off, just take us through some of the most common uses of assistive technology today. Where are we seeing it?
Yeah, sure. Assistive technology is a broad term for a lot of technologies that we're familiar with that help people in their daily tasks adapt to their environment or assist in rehab, stuff like that. It's particularly important for like disability community and our older adults. And I think of things like electric wheelchairs, hearing aids, electronic braille readers, and speech to text software.
Right, which has entered our lives in a really big way. So where does assistive technology, what does that have to do with AI and emerging technology? How are they influencing it?
Well, there's something really cool happening here in Vancouver with a group that's just totally leading the way in this field. It's called Squire Society, and they're borrowing from the hardware hacking and makerspace ethos to revolutionize how these adaptive technologies are created and built and then distributed to people who want to use them. I spoke with Chad Lehman, Squire Society's Director of Innovation, to understand this better. And here's how he explains the downside of how assistive tech is traditionally developed and the problems he's trying to solve with AT.
A lot of assistive technology is kind of big, bulky, kind of old school. And quite often it's like slow run manufacturing, right? So it's like very small batch. Then there's national distributors and regional distributors. And it gets really expensive really quick.
Yeah, so that's Chad Lehman from Squire Society talking about the challenges they see with development of traditional assistive tech.
Okay, and so what solution has he come up with then?
They've come up with a really cool program called Makers Making Change. This taps into the whole open source hardware hacking ethos that I was talking about. They have more than 200 open source designs that anyone can build. Just go download and build. And they get volunteers together to help make these devices using things like 3D printing and stuff like that. Here's Chad talking about the benefits of how this open source approach and community-based approach to the development of assistive tech works great.
It's really a new model to sort of get people different technology, but there's some benefits to this model. You can customize it. It's not one size fits all, which is like super important for people because disability is a spectrum. People are going to have different needs of sort of pieces. You can do things in aesthetics. We had a young child we're working with that was like super excited about flamingos. So I was able to print the device with a flamingo on the top of it. Now that's hers. She's engaged with it, wants to use it. And it creates these sort of different social economic bonds. We have a lot of youth, kids that are sort of learning STEM skills in schools. It's like you can learn how to 3D print, but actually have an impact in your community.
So, it also reduces the cost quite a bit, but as you can hear Chad say, there's a big benefit to empowering communities to work together and making a big difference. Last week, they had their first annual holiday hackathon in Burnaby, and volunteers made hundreds of assistive switches attached to like electronic bubble blowers, so people living with disabilities could turn on electronic toys and use them for Christmas.
Well, that's cool. And what about AI? What impact is that having on the world of assistive technology?
There's a ton of crossover happening right now. There's a lot of tools that have been developed for people with disabilities that are being used by people in the mainstream now and vice versa. I spoke with Deepi, and she's a broadcaster at CITR, and she uses electric scooter to get around, a wheelchair, and has daily support staff to help her with her activities. She's been exploring how AI and other tech tools can help her become more independent. And here's Deepi talking about how technologies like GPT and voice recognition software have helped her quite a bit in her life.
It just gives them, like a sense of freedom, Don't have to rely on other people to do things for you. Yeah, so I love it. And I think AI is pretty much the same thing. It's not going to be perfect by any means. But, what is it perfect, right?
Yeah. Deepi showed me how these tools can be totally transformative in her life. Even smart tools like smart home devices and stuff like that, which weren't specifically designed for people with disabilities. They're creating a lot of new opportunities for independence.
No, I know. And I mean, I have a house full of that stuff just because I, like to play Jean-Luc Picard when I'm at home and ask the computer to do things. So your takeaway from all of this then, I mean, this sounds super encouraging.
Well, we're at this really fascinating, unique time with tech. There's this like two-way street happening in assistive technology. People with disabilities have been using tools like speech recognition for years, while mainstream consumers are just starting to understand the potential of ChatGPT and how we can kind of integrate it into our lives through voice models and stuff like that. Even very common technologies like SMS and text messaging, these things we use every day, but those were originally developed as assistive tech for people with hearing loss. So I think that as open source tech and AI continue to develop, we're going to see a lot of innovations and exciting things in this space.
Right. And you might not think of yourself as a person with a disability, but as you get older, you find, maybe you would like a little assistive technology in your life somewhere.
Yeah, that's why it's useful to think of it as people living with disabilities, because it may not be something you're born with or have your whole life, but something you deal with somewhere along the way.
Kris, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.
I love coming in. Thanks a lot, Stephen.
It's great to see you. Kris Krüg, founder of Future Proof Creatives. If you've got anything to add, would love to hear some examples of your own assistive technology. If you happen to be using it, 236-330-2623, 236-330-2623.